President Donald Trump says that his government and Tehran were in talks to negotiate an end to hostilities. He repeated earlier claims, though, that Tehran isn't yet ready for a deal.
There's a military exit where we just keep going just the way we are, and we can even make it a heavier dose, and it's knocking out everything they have. Or there's a smarter strategy, and that's you make a deal, and they want to make a deal. I just don't think they're ready yet, but they do want to make a deal. Sometimes they don't want to say they want to make a deal. They want to be the tough guys, but they do want to make a deal. There's two ways. I mean, it's you can just keep doing exactly what we're doing and take them apart piece by piece. We can do it in a more rapid fashion, which we might do, or we can negotiate with them, which we're also doing right now. I mean, as we speak, we're talking to them.
Live to Washington, Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapolo is at the White House. Manuel, President Trump said that Iran wanted a deal, wasn't ready, and then said that the U.S. may well intensify attacks. What should we read into all of this?
All of that is right, Adrian. And what's interesting here is that this was a meeting that President Trump convened where he said he had big announcement to make related to nuclear innovation. But the topic and the interest, at least from reporters who were present in the Oval Office today, quickly shifted toward Iran. President Trump was asked specifically about his remarks regarding what he was more or less considering would be a massive attack, a quote-unquote massive attack on Iran. But he responded by saying that we're talking to them. And he was asked about what that meant. He said that there are talks currently taking place, which in many ways contradicts much of the signaling that we've been hearing from U.S. officials over the course of the week that suggested that diplomacy had essentially lost momentum, that the focus was on kinetic movements related to military actions when it comes to Tehran. President Trump was also asked specifically about his exit strategy. He says that from his point of view, he thinks that there are many exit strategies, though he did not elaborate on what those would be. He says that the U.S. is talking to Iran, says, quote, Iran is getting very serious, and they should be. In that same breath, he also said that the United States remains locked and loaded. Repeating once more that talks are taking place. He pointed to members of his cabinet, such as Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as Vice President J.D. Vance, being involved in these talks. But again, repeating that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, saying that he's not in a hurry to make a deal. He says that it has to be, that he wants it to be done right. So again, right now, it's clear that diplomacy or the diplomatic track has stalled. Despite that, President Trump says that talks are currently taking place, that Iran is reaching out. Again, kinetic action is the focus. If there is a diplomatic track, it appears to be being led at this point by the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and by the Vice President J.D. Vance. But the challenge remains the same as it has over the course of the last week, over the course of the last few weeks. Not only is the United States trying to reassure the American people that U.S. interests and U.S. objectives are being met, the U.S. administration is also trying to reassure its partners in the Gulf that this is in their best interest as well. And the overall goal here, not only to bring this conflict to an end, the preference appears to be a diplomatic off-ramp, but to ensure that the risk is lowered of a larger, broader regional conflict in the region.
Al Jazeera's Manuel Rapolo reporting live there from the White House. Manuel, many thanks indeed. Let's discuss this further with our guests. Joining us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the U.S., Ross Harrison. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, the author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy. And Sina Azodi is in Washington, D.C. He's the director of the Middle East Studies program at George Washington University and the author of Iran and the Bomb, the United States, Iran and the Nuclear Question. Gentlemen, welcome. Ross, let's start with you. Is Washington still driving events right now and increasingly reacting to an expanding regional conflict? Does Saudi Arabia's apparent return to military action in the last few hours mark perhaps a turning point in this conflict?
Well, Adrian, I think the U.S. is certainly driving the events right now because of the kinetic action, but the Iranians also have a vote in how this conflict plays out day to day, and also how it ends at the when hostilities start to wind down. But I think what we're seeing, Adrian, is that in the early days of this war, the Iranians, the way they could survive and maintain their regime basically intact was to make the battlefield so complex that it denied the United States and Israel at the time all of its contingencies. And that involved the Strait of Hormuz, it involved the Gulf Arab states. And now what we're seeing is the inability to rein all of those various factors in. And now what's happened is the conflict, as you suggested, has expanded with Saudi Arabia getting into the battle, with Yemen and the Houthis, and Israel in the battle over the last number of weeks with Hezbollah in Lebanon. So this is going to become an increasingly difficult thing for the United States to drive going forward, and for the Iranians actually as well. So we're at a knife edge moment right now.
Sina, do you agree with that? The Houthis that have opened another maritime front, does that increase Iran's leverage, or simply make it harder to argue that Iran is looking for a diplomatic solution?
Well, I think we're at a stage where events are leading both the Iranians and Americans. And I don't think either side is in control of the events. Events are leading them. And in terms of the Houthis, I think that it could help Iran. It could also prove to be detrimental very quickly because accidents happen. Plans don't usually go accordingly, and there might be a point where there's something happens and conflict escalates far more than the Iranians anticipated. Yes, they do want the conflict to be broadened geographically. It serves their interest, but I also think that miscalculations here played an important role in both Tehran, for both Iranians and the Americans.
Ross, if the Ansar al-Houthis attack more vessels in the Red Sea and Saudi Arabia responds and re-enters the conflict directly, how much greater, picking up on what you were saying a few moments ago, is the risk of a genuinely regional war?
Well, there's a great risk right now, Adrian, because what you have is you've got the conflict between the United States and Iran, and then you have, as you indicated, you have these various components, the Yemeni, Saudi conflict and the Israeli-Hezbollah conflict. And each of them, I think it's important to say, remember, Israel has its own history with Hezbollah, and Saudi Arabia has its own history with Yemen prior to this conflict. So what you have is you have sort of a reignition of old conflicts that preceded this war, but were tamped down, now being exacerbated and reignited by this war. And then those dynamics adding to the flames of this war, playing on what Sina just mentioned, which is that the actors that have the agency and the ability to decide whether to go to war, now losing control. And that's how that's how conflicts go beyond the control of the individual actors.
Sina, with Iran on Friday attacking Kuwait, Bahrain, and I've just seen here on the news wires that air raid sirens are being sounded again in Bahrain, and Jordan today, and what's going on in the Red Sea too. Has all this fighting made diplomacy more urgent or more difficult if negotiations do resume? I mean, Donald Trump says that the US is still talking to Tehran. Who at the moment has the stronger hand?
I mean, I think that was part of Iran's strategy to escalate and make the lives of the GCC countries very difficult. So they rush in and they try to convince President Trump to end the conflict. Now, in terms of who has the upper hand, what I can say is that the U.S. military has far more superior power. There's no question in that. The question is whether you can translate that military power and the power of destruction into political objectives. So far, we've seen that air campaign, this air campaign, and quite frankly, the history of air campaigns show that they don't bring political submission. Now, for Iranians, I also have to add that they have far more capacity to absorb punishment. Iran is a large country. It is culturally different from the United States. It is more acceptable to absorbing pain and casualties. So it is really hard to say who has the upper hand.
Ross, Pakistan, Qatar, and of course Oman continue to push for diplomacy. Is there, right now, still a realistic political off-ramp, or has the battlefield overtaken the negotiating table?
Well, I think we're on a knife edge, Adrian. I think there's a possibility of a return to negotiation. But I think what we're seeing here is that even though the United States and Iran both have a broad strategic interest in resolving this conflict, right now, I don't think either of them believe that there is an off-ramp, and I don't think they believe that they can win more at the negotiating table at this moment than on the battlefield. So I think we're in a moment where the negotiators, the mediators, Qatar and Pakistan, maybe believe in peace to a greater degree at this moment than the actual protagonists in Tehran and in Washington.
Sina, Marco Rubio says that Iran wants a deal but won't make the necessary concessions. What is the minimum that Tehran could realistically accept now and still claim success?
Well, I would say the end of hostilities, lifting the blockade, and sanctions relief. This is what they're demanding. That's the minimum for them. We have to keep in mind that from the beginning, when Pezeshkian ran in the elections and became the accidental president, he promised sanctions relief and engagement to bring some economic prosperity. Without economic prosperity, without sanctions relief and investment, Iran will have a very difficult time in managing the country. There's unemployment as a result of war has gone up. Inflation has gone up. Many people have been out of jobs. So they need investments to run the country and bounce back in a sense.
Gentlemen, there we must leave it. Many thanks indeed, Sina Azadi and Ross Harrison.